I've only really got 3 things to tell you, I think. My brain has shrunk from morphine over the last 4 years. And I was just telling someone else on the panel earlier, I was at an event the other day organised by Channel 4 where I do some work with lots of sort of trendy young people working in technology. And I thought, God, here am I still with the hip young kids. At which point, one of the hip young kids said to me, so what does it feel like to be a dot-com dinosaur? And I thought, oh, God, that's not very impressive at under 35. Anyway, it's been a roller coaster over 10 years. It was 1997 that Brent first approached me about doing lastminute.com, an idea that he came up with and I can't take any credit for. But we learned a lot of lessons, and I think the most important thing was a very simple one, which I'm sure you've heard many times before, which was be absolutely obsessive, passionate, and dedicated to your customer. And that is something that, regardless of whatever was happening in the business, whether we were out there trying to take the company public, trying to launch in new countries, trying to recruit an impossibly large number of staff in a short space of time, trying to move offices, trying to talk at conferences, whatever it was, we both tried all the time to be obsessive and passionate and dedicated to the customer, which is pretty easy when you've got a fun product like lastminute.com, which, if you promise not to repeat it to his wife, Brent really came up with because he was quite busy, his wife, organising short breaks for him and various ladies, and it was proving very complicated on the phone to hotels, trying to ring airlines and do a job at the same time. So this was clearly the best product for him. And when he told me about it, it was something that I instantly could understand and see the use of. You know, you didn't have to be a technology expert, and I wasn't, to see that there could be an amazingly powerful brand created around the idea of lastminute.com and helping people at the last minute. And however big the company got, we always kept a small customer service team right in our main office, and we always spent at least a day every month working on that, with that team, in that team, trying to stay close to what was actually happening on the site and stay close to what the product really was. And I think that is essential and never, ever a waste of time, although it can sometimes be slightly tricky. I'll just give you one example of the customer services challenges that we faced. Quite often things would get escalated up to me if there was somebody particularly brutal on the phone who was mauling one of the poor customer service team. And we tried to direct people back off the telephone predominantly because we were a web business, but if you're in travel, you have to quite often reassure people and hold their hand. And there was one customer that was swearing and shouting and screaming down the telephone. No one could understand what the hell he was going on about. So a lovely guy from the team came down and said, can you help me? Can you just deal with this customer? I was like, fine, I love this stuff. Get on the phone to him, sweetness and light. Hello, my name's Martha, how can I help? Couldn't understand a word he was saying. After about 25 minutes, I managed to break it down to really appreciate what the problem was, which was, unusually for us, we had managed to pull off a piece of technical sophistication, which was launching a fast buy product, which was a complete rip-off from Amazon at that time. And we had just installed it so that you didn't have to populate all the data in various fields to buy something. You could just hit the buy button and it would remember from the last time you bought. Well, we thought this was very sophisticated and clever, which it was, unless you were a customer who had, last time he bought tickets for him and his wife to go on a holiday, and this time was buying them for someone else and him, but they were still going to his home address with his wife's name on. So he was pretty angry with us for having screwed up his marital relations. So that was an interesting attempt to get close to the customer, and obviously I apologised and said that we'd refund him the cost of the holiday. So loving your customers, being obsessive about them, and making sure that they are carried along with your brand proposition, I think is absolutely essential. The second thing that I think is incredibly important is thinking very, very carefully about your marketing and making sure that you are using the web for what it is best at, which is building networks and making other people spread the word for you. And that was just hinted at in the other introduction. Back in 1997, word of mouth was still critical. We were struggling with a web where people were worried that it was very, very unsafe to buy. And most of our conversations in those early days were about, no, it really is safe to give your credit card details online. We're not going to steal them. You won't get ripped off. Lots and lots of reassurances to the customer. Now, of course, those days are over and it's different kinds of marketing messages. And the web has moved on considerably since then as well. I think that the biggest change that I see, and this maybe is a matter for debate, is that there are less sites being built as destinations. Come to us, we have got the solution, we've got content, we've got commerce, and more sites that have content distributing through other people's networks. And it's a small but very significant shift in my mind. And I think now when you're marketing on the web, that's the important thing, is thinking about how you get your product, your services, your content out through other people's networks. And let your customers talk about it, market it, spread it in their own way. And I think that that's something that's not easy to do or easy to get right, and certainly has developed in sophistication since we first started working in the web. But it's very, very important. I would also advise becoming complete whores to any kind of publicity that you can. I mean, as you know, I'm more guilty of that than anyone. But Brent and I, in the early days, would go to the opening of an envelope and talk about lastminute.com. We were at every single conference. I'm sure Matthew got sick of us. We went to every single launch of every single magazine. We tried to talk to every possible journalist, evangelical about what we were doing. And it was absolutely essential because we got literally hundreds of millions of pounds worth of free advertising by just talking about our products, and probably to the annoyance of a lot of people ourselves all the time. But it worked, and it really did save the company a huge amount in unnecessary marketing expense. And obviously, we lived through a very difficult time. Our share price collapsed. The internet world was suddenly picked on as having ripped off half the country, created a state of unbelievable turmoil in the financial markets. And for a while, it seemed as though people forgot that actually customers were still using the web, the numbers were still growing, people were still buying more online, searching for stuff more online, beginning to download music online, buying books online, whatever it was. And that was definitely one of the hardest periods of time for us at lastminute.com, trying to stay focused, keep the team focused, when the outside world seemed to have gone to an enormous state of disbelief that this was ever going to come good. But I think, again, a relentless focus on your product and on your customers is absolutely essential at that time, because we could see that people were still buying. We could see the feedback from our customers. We were just trying to tweak the product and keep the message alive and keep the team focused inside the organisation. So luckily, things came good. The company was actually always in a pretty firm footing. We'd raised enough money to put us in a sensible position. And ultimately, we managed to sell the business in 2005. And so when I look back now and I think about what really helped us, apart from obsession about customers, some fairly clever marketing, I think that the other thing that I was trying to kind of articulate to myself earlier to how I could explain it to you, but I think that good people, good entrepreneurs have very self-aware optimism. So it's, to me, incredibly important to be optimistic, to believe that things are going to come good, to believe that the product you're passionate about is something that other people will be passionate about too. But it's also important to do that not blindly, to not completely shut yourself off to other people's ideas, to other people's help, to other people's talent. And getting that talent can take you into completely new directions and speed up your journey in an exciting way. At which point, perhaps it's worth ending with my main memory of Anita Roddick, who I was fortunate to work with in a charity that I run called Reprieve. The last time I saw her, which was only about 3 weeks ago, the last thing she said to me was, keep on fighting, and I think that's pretty important too. I think if you're starting your own business, it's definitely a bit of a fight, but you can do it and have an enormous reward and a lot of fun along the way. Thank you.